Elite partners have access to the beta build of the new version of the game, which includes the Type 11 available in pre-release for ARCs, in addition to a number of substantive changes to the game, which I believe are actually even more meaningful than the release of Type 11. Most creators that I had a chance to connect or read the commentary of basically all agree on one thing: the Type 11 sucks, and we were expected to suck. So no surprise there. Like, whether FDEV will change things before release so that it will suck less, we'll see. But nevertheless, I would say this is poised to be the least hyped and least popular release of a new ship since the release of new ships really began. But we shall see. Maybe facts will prove me wrong. But if things don't change, there really isn't a reason to use the Type 11 over existing miners nowadays. And furthermore, the Type 11 is a lot more restrictive than any of existing ships. So there really isn't a compelling argument for this ship to exist kind of at all, except for maybe having a somewhat visually cool new module, but which doesn't do much in practice. So that's with the Type 11. On a more substantial basis, there are two changes that are being tested on the pre-release service, which fundamentally impact the way the game is played, in my view, and which are incredibly exciting. First one is the fact that it is apparently going to be possible to dismantle and cancel constructions that have been made in the Trailblazers colonization model. If you've been following this channel, you know that was the biggest gripe I've had since the introduction of Trailblazers, and something I fundamentally felt that was missing for colonization to be even remotely called feature complete. It is apparently now being tested. Hopefully it will make it through and come to the game. If it does, it will be the addition that we've honestly all been waiting for ever since we breaked our system, or our systems, considering the fact that the rules of colonization changed over and over. And I'm willing to bet that all of us, or at least a fair substantial part of us, has one or more systems that are crippled because we either didn't know what we were doing or things changed after we did them. So the possibility of dismantling individual stations and correcting errors or fine-tuning systems, even if it comes at the expense of time invested in constructing them, is incredibly welcome and honestly way overdue. So I'm glad that it is being tested, and hopefully will make it into the game at some point in the near future. It is also apparently reported that the scanner range of the exobiology scanner is being substantially increased, potentially up to 750 meters, which would significantly enhance the xenobiology experience, so that you don't actually have to run around on foot or on an SRV, or by hopping back into your ship and dropping again to get your hand on the 3 different samples necessary. But if that is a range that is confirmed to be rolled out in production, you will be able to grab those samples potentially from a single spot just by staring at the distance at different biological patches. Whether, again, that holds and remains in place, we shall see, but nevertheless it is bound to significantly enhance the quality of life of exobiologists in the game. So very exciting news, not so much for Type 11, but the fixes, this very substantial fixes to colonization, which, coupled with the recent fixes to the economy, have resulted in a colonization mechanic which is almost fully functional, I want to say. There are still some tweaks that, if it was my opinion, I would still make. I still do believe that the amount of hauling required is excessive by a factor of somewhere between 5 and 10. Yes, it is fun. Yes, it feels rewarding to do something that takes some reasonable amount of time, but the amount of time involved in hauling for even just a simple single tier 1 station is still way too high, in my personal opinion. So if they address that as the remaining element, and they introduce the ability to cancel construction and delete existing constructions, I believe we will finally agree with FDEV when they call it feature complete, and we'll finally have a functional system for colonization in game, which is welcome. In other news, you may also have seen that the there's a set of additional elements that are being introduced, particularly with regards to squadrons, and the inactivity of squadrons will now be reported on the squadron view. Furthermore, if squadron leaders are inactive, they will be replaced automatically by going to like a randomly selected officer of the next available ranking tier of the squadron itself, which is, you know, as good as a system as can possibly be implemented automatically without having to do manual interventions, I guess. So there's some additional goodness coming to how squadrons work in game, because let's face it, the amount of zombie squadrons and the amount of like zombie squadron leaders in the game is way too high. So lots of good changes coming to the game after candidly a very, very disappointing September for Elite, where the amount of community involvement has been truly minimal. The wild goose chase that they sent us with October consortium megaships has been abysmally uninteresting and minimal. There's been an initial message that the community tried for 3 days to decrypt for only for it to find out that it was complete garbage and it was not meant to be decrypted, and instead was the result of a series of time gates that were rolled out one after the other for a very underwhelming sort of like quote mystery so far. Now presumably, like with the release of a Type 11, that mystery will come to a conclusion and we'll get access to the final system, and we'll see what that holds. But again, I'm not particularly holding my breath after how underwhelming the whole September series has been and how underwhelming the Type 11 appears to be. What again I am very, very excited about is the upcoming changes to colonization, which means that a lot of people are likely going to get back into colonization, since you can finally fix the errors and mistakes that inevitably happen and are going to be made. I, for one, might even get myself back into colonization after not having really touched it for like, I want to say at least a month and a half now. But it's a good direction. It's glad to see that they're kind of finally wrapping up the work that needed to be done to make colonization a functional feature and a functional release within Elite. There's a number of other things I think still surround Vanguards with regards to polishing required and changes that are necessary for the squadron system to work as well as it should. But I think it's in a far less of a sorry state than Trailblazers was upon release. So it also built sort of incrementally to what was a system that wasn't in and of itself broken. So it's something that I think it will polish over time in a very meaningful way. That's it. Glory to mankind. Commander Meccan, over and out.